Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Franciscan Fridays at the Shrine. I'm Brother Pius Gagne, here with Father Luke Mary. And before we get started, a couple of things. First of all, please like, subscribe, click the thumbs up, tell your friends. Feel free to leave ideas in the comments as well, things you'd like to hear us talk about. We'll also have some directions for you on our topic today. Before we do that, need to make a theological correction. Father Luke.
Here we go. Okay.
Father Luke very kindly and somewhat gently pointed out to me that I misspoke. Jesus was not circumcised at the presentation in the temple. He was circumcised after the eighth day after his birth, and the going to the temple and being presented is 40 days after. So there you go. Brother Pius does make mistakes. And with that, we'll talk about some prayer and reparation. Father Luke, lead us off.
Brother Pius, welcome. So we had a nice discussion recently with Dorothy, our shrine manager, and she had shared with us an idea for the podcast. So today we're going to talk about this thing that we're doing with the Blue Army Shrine, and that is offering an opportunity for people to sign up for a spiritual bouquet. We're gathering up what's called a spiritual bouquet to give to Pope Leo on his birthday, which I believe is September 14th.
Okay.
And so we thought, we'll mention that. And then also maybe to talk about how this is something that's very connected to some very specific details in the whole Fatima story. So as we begin, so if you Google Blue Army Spiritual Bouquet, you'll find it, or there's a link in the description if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube. In this opportunity, you'll see different ideas, whether it be rosaries or Divine Mercy chaplets or holy hours or masses, where you can kind of commit and sign up for offering these prayers for Pope Leo as a birthday gift. And so on that note, we come back to a few things that happened in the Fatima story itself. First of all, how much love and prayer the three little shepherd children had for the Holy Father, the reverence and love for the office and the place of the Holy Father in the church, as Jesus gave us the Holy Father, that office. And also the idea of the efficacy and importance of prayer. As you and I were chatting, there were a couple of details, like, for example, when the children were given this frightening vision of hell and they see the demons and damned souls, and Mother Mary tells them, you've seen hell where some sinners go because there's nobody to make sacrifices or pray for them, which kind of seemed to fire up the spirituality of these three little children for praying and making sacrifices for others. This realization that somehow in the mystery of God's plan, he includes our cooperation, especially through prayers and making sacrifices that somehow channel or release extra graces for people. And then a few other points. So what are your thoughts on that topic?
A couple of thoughts. So I'll start with a really cool story. When I was in college at Franciscan University, I went to Austria, and it was around the time that St. John Paul II died. And we were on our Rome and Assisi trip, and he was in the hospital. It would be a few more months before he ended up passing. But we actually put together a spiritual bouquet with a picture of our entire class. And the cardinal who was with John Paul II brought him our spiritual bouquet of making sacrifices and prayers for the Holy Father. So it's kind of a neat tie-in. I was reminded of that this morning as I was kind of praying about what to say. But, St. Jacinta especially had this focus of praying for the Holy Father. And I can't help but think that third secret of Fatima, where they see a bishop dressed in white, that they understood to be the Holy Father, and that he actually gets martyred, gets killed. And I think that combined with the vision of hell just lit a fire in the children's heart to really...
No pun intended.
That's right. No pun intended. Not hellfire, Holy Spirit fire.
There you go.
And just the beauty of this little girl having such a fervor for praying for the Holy Father. And I think it's easy to be critical of things we may not like when a Holy Father is in office, and, the challenge that living faith in the human institution of the church can require. It's an act of faith because human instruments are broken very often. But instead of being critical, to concretely do something for the Holy Father, and offering prayers and sacrifices is a beautiful way to show our support and our love in a very hidden way for the Holy Father.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
As you were speaking, I was thinking of a couple of things. First of all, how the Rosary got its name. So evidently, according to a Franciscan historian, there was a Franciscan novice, I think 1422 in Assisi, Italy, who had a custom as a kid of weaving these wreaths of roses for Mary as a devotion. I don't know if for the crown, for the May crowning, or, just bouquets of flowers. And he joins the friars. And I guess, in his formation, they had suggested as a poor friar, you're not going to be able to do that like you did when you were a kid. And he had a scruple over that, and then had a dream where Mother Mary suggests to him that the praying of the Ave Maria, what would become the Rosary, is like a spiritual bouquet. And in this way, that prayer, which Mother Mary at Fatima had asked for every day, pray the Rosary, got the name Rosary. This kind of spiritual wreath of rosaries, and kind of other saints and mystics have kind of talked about those prayers are like offering spiritual bouquets to Mary. So that's an interesting tie-in. And then also just, in thinking about this thing that we're doing now for gathering the spiritual bouquet for the Holy Father, and my own readings of the writings of Sister Lucia Fatima, you'll see nothing but love and reverence for all the Holy Fathers. She had become friends with multiple Holy Fathers over the year. And it's unfortunate that nowadays there are some people proposing Fatima like kind of a conspiracy and weird fake news that really is not consistent with what really was said, but rather the authentic message really has a lot to do with love and reverence, and the idea that prayer does something. Yeah. I mean, this is hard for us to understand as modern people. Like, you could think of all these other things you can do, and there's something tangible. You see, okay, I've done something. Look at like the fruit of what I've done. Whereas prayer doesn't always work that way. And so you wonder, even like devout Catholics may say things like, oh, I'll pray for you or whatever. It kind of becomes like a throwaway line. But we're in reality what the children at Fatima were told, which is, absolutely a reaffirmation of what we already believed from Scripture and church teaching, is that prayer has power, especially the prayer of the Rosary. Certainly the prayer of the Church, the liturgy, is the most powerful. Offering masses for souls in purgatory, and just offering prayers to have a strong enough faith to realize that these prayers do something. And especially, for example, a spiritual bouquet for our Holy Father. You imagine his ministry right now, and that role is like so difficult to be the universal pastor and a successor to St. Peter, and tasked with the charism of strengthening the brethren. That's what Jesus said to Peter when he first, and how our prayers may be helpful to him as he is kind of tasked with leading the church.
Sure. And I think just to take that point a little bit, a step or two further, all of us are, in times in our life, the thing that we thought was our identity, the concrete things that we do, especially as we age or are ill or whatever's happening, we can become discouraged and think, man, I'm completely useless. I'm sitting here with whatever illness, or person who's homebound and elderly. But really, if you look at the lives of the three shepherd children and the lives of, every cloistered nun, every hermit monk, a massive percentage of people in the life of the church are people who abandoned really the concrete works of mercy for these spiritual works of mercy, one of which is prayer. And it is an exercise in faith to believe this, but the truth is that, and Our Lady, I think, showed this at Fatima, like, our prayer is more efficacious than potentially, a president going to talk to a world leader, or maybe the grace that the president has to talk to the world leader comes from the prayers of very humble, very hidden people. To sort of swing back to that mystery we were talking about, a few episodes ago, there is this hidden life of Jesus, which is how he spent the majority of his life, praying in union with his Father, together with his mother Mary, St. Joseph, while St. Joseph is still alive. These acts, we don't know how important they are to the history of the world and the church, but I think that the church asks us to recognize that prayer is a tremendous gift, and Our Lady's request for these sorts of things, and we're obviously doing something with a very specific intention, but this can be an everyday part of your life, even if you're not able to do big crazy works. I think of the little flower Saint Therese, little things with great love, and they're efficacious. They make a change, and that's so consoling. Certainly, I've been in the hospital more than usual, more than most people, and you could fall into the trap, fall into the lie that sitting here in a hospital room or at home, what can I do? Well, you can do a ton.
Right.
And to just sort of grab onto that is something that Jesus desires, and it's a gift we can offer that really, as Jesus says, can move mountains.
Oh, wow. Well said. Well said. As you were sharing that, I was thinking about St. Therese. So I wasn't surprised when you talked about her, this cloistered nun who dies at 24 years old. And look at the fruitfulness of her life. In ironic details, when she passed, they write a little obituary to share amongst all the Carmelites. And supposedly the Mother Superior said, what are we going to write about her? She didn't do anything. Yeah. Well, now she's like canonized, a doctor of the church, and just amazing graces. I think of my cousin, St. Charbel, Bar Charbel, this hermit from Lebanon, who has done more miracles than any other saint in the history of the church. Yeah. Almost 40,000 documented miracles since his death. Wow. And yet when he was here, he was a hermit. He was, living in solitude and praying and interceding. So it's funny, like we may have a way of seeing and understanding things from like a natural perspective. And so often our faith challenges us to see things and understand things differently from a supernatural perspective. Yeah. And from that perspective, we could say how important prayer is, that time spent with the Lord is never time wasted. Yep. And that when we die, we're probably going to regret that we didn't give more time to prayer and to have an understanding of just how powerful and efficacious prayer is. Think of especially the prayer of the church, the Eucharist, but also the Rosary, and how that hasn't somehow, in the mystery of the way how God has things working, it has an ability to bear fruit. Yeah. And especially praying for someone like the Pope. Yeah, maybe we could even add, pray for your bishop of your diocese, pray for the pastor of your church. Yeah. But especially praying for the Holy Father. Certainly the Fatima children, Sister Lucia, had nothing but love and reverence for the Holy Fathers, and seems to be, kind of an affirmation of just that, how the importance of that office. Yeah. So bring us home, Brother Pius. Pull it together.
Yeah, I'll do what I can. It's funny. I just read, to go back to something you said, I just read a quote from the actor Denzel Washington, who I think very recently has had a conversion to Christianity, like a really sincere conversion. It sounds like I don't know him. I don't know the whole story. But somebody asked him, he's in his 70s now, and somebody asked him, looking back at your career, what is something you wish you did? And his answer was, I wish I prayed more. And I don't know what the movement in his heart is. But I am edified, somebody who's had wealth and worldly success and all these sorts of things. And there's something about when you get a little bit older, I let my beard grow out and I looked in, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of gray hairs.
Brother Pius just had his birthday recently.
Yeah, that's right. I'm feeling my age.
Midlife crisis, full effect.
That's right. Where's my Corvette? But I think that it is a sobering reality as we confront our mortality. And I think that the devil particularly likes to make people who are suffering or who have lost a big piece of what they used to do. I was recently talking to another friend who had fairly recently retired, and I said, how's retirement going? And he said, it's awful. I have nothing to do, and I think that, I think he was half joking, but it's, as I've said before on this podcast, meaning making is one of the most important things we can do that will guide us through as a value whatever difficulties and joys we encounter, to have purpose behind what we're doing. And the beautiful thing is that prayer and sacrifice are things that are accessible to all of us. That gift is something anyone and everyone can offer in little ways and in big ways. And I think it is the spirituality of St. Therese that is so wonderful. You know, Sister Lucia became a Carmelite, and so much of Therese's life was, caught up in doing little things. But if we direct our intention the right way, the smallest thing can be something beautiful for God.
Small things done with great love.
Exactly.
Yeah, there
Exactly.
it is.
Yeah. So that's my encouragement for this week, for this month. To click on to making prayer and sacrifice for the Holy Father, something we do for his birthday. But let's not stop there. Right. Let's continue to have this spirituality of doing what we can, like St. Francis, to help hold up the church in this time that's so difficult. And when people's faith in the institution of the church is a little bit under attack these days, to do our best to positively contribute. I think that's a beautiful offering we can make to God.
Well said. So again, if you Google Blue Army Spiritual Bouquet for Pope Leo, I think we'll have the link to that here in the description of this podcast, like YouTube and Facebook. And we can just encourage everybody to sign up, and we'll get those pledges of prayer to the Pope for his birthday in September.
Awesome.
Okay, see you next week. God bless you.